Blessed love and peace. We share this additional joint. Oh, that is the wares of voodoo. E. All right. Um, as we prepare for Fajr, share this joint. It may be. Try to be less distractive. Distractive. How about that? Distracting. Whatever. Here we go. It may be that my church is women's football. I share that um, not sarcastically, but lightheartedly, but actually genuinely in many ways. So, first of all, continually Asana Ashram, Sangha Yosef Rastafari. Continually Tobadi Gokadao, Torah Bhagavad Gita, Diganakaya Dhammapada Gospels, Quran, and Tao Te Ching. This is the spiritual path and walk. What I mean by my church is women's football. It may be that my church's women's football is this. When we talk about the pragmatic organizing of spirituality, of the relationship of spirit with the earth, how we manifest this consciousness, this knowledge of world harmony, the discipline, the deen, the mitzvot even. It's very difficult to do it through specifically, exclusively religious pretenses and religious vernacular, religious institutionalization. We do that for the practice, but we, in terms of being in relationship with kinfolk, negotiation, diplomacy, economics, politics, and further, working as a spiritual or religious entity, specifically, exclusively, there are a lot of challenges at the spiritual level, but also at the economic and political level. A lot of antagonisms, a lot of boxes, a lot of agenda, strategies, competition, predatoriness, and otherwise, territoriality, and otherwise. And so, even when identifying as a mystic, spiritual experience, additionally, a lot of that antagonism, just because that's how kinfolk are. So that's one thing. Another thing is that men, by and large, generally speaking, are further and further out of it. Men are losing men's selves, and by that I mean, first, just being a citizen. And this is not a dig on citizenship. This is just an articulation of it. Again, I've said it before. We've said it before. The methodology of democracy, the methodology of the democratic citizen, is one wherein each man breaks himself, proactively, volitionally breaks himself in order to gain the benefits of being in the whole. That's applicable to each scenario in many ways, tribe, monarchy, and otherwise. However, the distinction of the democracy is that it is a perpetual breaking of self, meaning that there is no ascending to being the number one. There is no number one, and so it's an abrogate, or it's an eradication of number one itself, and so it's a mentality of there being no number one, and a man needs to be number one. Each man needs to be number one in his own way. Now, that methodology provides for a lot of a certain type of cooperation, politically, economically, and otherwise, into becoming what is at this moment superpowers. But in those superpowers, each man is a lesser being across the board, regardless of how much money or whatever else kinfolk have. So, point is that in order to function within a democracy, in order to function within a republic, a man is required to break himself. So that's one thing. What I didn't mention in the previous joint about the demon and the devil situation is again just reading it just yesterday. I'm trying to remember what the context was, but it was referring to the devil as the prince of the world, meaning like having the powers over the world in that respect over other men. Um, so just that concept. This is coming from the Gospels, if I recall correctly. Jesus. I'm trying to remember what the passage is specifically, but just in that concept of recognizing the earthly powers essentially being demonic. Ooh, that's nasty. That's nasty. But just to understand, that's the nature of that hierarchy, of being in the hierarchy. Whether it's a kingdom, whether it's an empire, whether it's a corporation, or whether it's a bank. Ooh, we do even say religion. Oh, we won't go there at the moment. But particularly these earthly phenomena, because religion is supposed to be further than earthly. Each of these earthly realms of power and sovereignty, earthly sovereignty, it is governed. Oh, what up, Blue Jay? What's going on? What's popping? Respect. Eat up that peanut. Blessings. Talk about regal and royalty. Oh, the Blue Jays. It's 3. Big old Blue Jays. 4. Whoo-wee. Blessings upon blessings. Hallelujah. Quiet too. What's going on? Why y'all so quiet? Excuse me, I'm taking a moment right now because it's been a minute since we done broke bread with the Blue Jays. Oh, I think they like them big peanuts. Goblin. Yo, Blue Jays got big old necks. The necks of the Blue Jays are about as big as sparrows. It's interesting. And I put out it's been a minute since I've seen the woodpecker too for a while. It's been a minute since a lot of the birds here. How about this? Tempering the talk about demons with the birds. Indeed. I hear them. Oh, them sweet, sweet sparrows. But the Blue Jays got big old necks with big old gullets. And when I put out the peanuts are too big. The whole peanuts are too big for the sparrows to eat directly. I think that don't stop the sparrows from taking them. But the Blue Jay just kind of flex. Say, hold up, I'm back. Make way. The peanuts are too big for the sparrows to eat directly, but the Blue Jays can eat them and just take it in a big group and swallow it. The acidity of the digestive system, particularly the Blue Jays, must be rather fierce to break down what the Blue Jays eat, like whole seeds, in such a small capacity. Think of people eat a peanut and it takes all that time in the stomach, whatever, to digest, if it's particularly organic. But for a Blue Jay, like a little Blue Jay with a big old throat, that digestive system must be intense. Indeed. And now it's a sparrow. So when we put out the peanuts for the sparrows, we tend to break the peanuts into portions. So at the moment, we left them pretty much whole. There's rice there too. Anyways, continuing on. So basically, what I'm saying here is this. What we're saying is that, like at the top of each hierarchy, at the top of each pyramid, it's not Pharaoh, it's not Caesar, it's devil. And everyone who ascends to the top of that hierarchy, pyramid or otherwise, is giving up of themselves. When we talk about those percentages again, is giving up themselves in order to fill that position. So it's not the people that we're dealing with, it's the position itself that we're dealing with. And people vie and compete and conquer to attain that position. But in doing that, they lose themselves. There was a story from Africa about the kinfolk. Excuse me, the kinfolk was from Africa, but it was from Brazil, in the land of Guarani, where the man becomes this king within Brazil. And in becoming the king, like he stops becoming himself, and now he's the king. And he fills that role of the king. That's his persona. That is who he becomes in life. Like whoever he was before that is gone, and now he is this persona. Rastafari becomes Haile Selassie. Odi, you hear that now? So the person, the man, becomes a different being, becomes a different himself by occupying a different position in life in that hierarchy. Now, does what I say apply to His Majesty Haile Selassie as well? Everyone. Now, that being said, in that position, I'm qualifying myself now as I'm articulating this. As I said before, when the person gives up of oneself, um, the other side of it is either God or devil. And when somebody occupies that higher position, um, there is devil and there is also God. And how we can determine the difference is what the person does for the person's self, whether that's money, whether that's women, whether that's um, um, what else is there? I mean, obviously, lavish riches and luxuries and whatever else. That is an indication of what the other influence is outside of that man's self. But either way, when a man occupies that position, a man loses himself increasingly. So that when people are vilifying somebody, a despot or whatever else, understand that the person that people are not identifying are vilifying that person, they're vilifying the position, because that person is predominantly gone. So that is the nature of a republic, particularly um, even at lower levels. I'm getting a little bit tangled up in this thing as I articulate this. So I'm being mindful. I'm being mindful of that too. Um, I'm being mindful of what to say, but I'm also being mindful of my entanglement in the influence that the Republic is having me as I speak at this moment. I also observe that when I talk about LGBTQ, things all of a sudden just become very convoluted. My thought just becomes very convoluted when talking about LGBTQ in a critical way. So it takes a considerable concentration and diligence to wade through that. So in talking about the hierarchy, particularly about the Republic and LGBTQ go hand in hand. In order to get to the higher echelons of the Republic, there is an increasing rate of self-relinquishment that a man is required to conduct, particularly because the methodologies of monarchy and additionally are family. It's a family. And so to be the monarch continues to be a family man. And so those who vie and compete and even plot to conquer and become the king and plot to become is still a family man. The premise of the Republic is not a family man. It's a ubiquitous type of existence where families are an increasing liability in the competition. So those who ascend in that hierarchy are further distanced from the traditional family experience. And in distancing from the traditional family experience, a man becomes less of a man. He may become a warrior, he may become a potentate, he may become a senator or a president. That is a position, that is not a man. So that culture, that norm, that methodology exacerbates, increases, augments that process of a man becoming less of a man at lower and lower stages of the hierarchy. Whether it's him being an absentee father, whether it's him being a work all the time, never at home father, whether it's him being a divorcee father, whether it's him being a bachelor perennial or otherwise, to ascend to the higher echelons of the Republic, generally speaking, requires being less of a man. And if a man doesn't do that, that means he is being governed, he is being bossed by others who are less of men. Have to answer to and obey others who are less than men, who are lesser than men, lesser men. This is not meant to be derogatory. This is not meant to be disrespectful. This is matter of fact. For those who decide to be lesser men, then being lesser men is inconsequential. So it shouldn't be perceived as disrespectful or derogatory. The day is rising. The point here is that that's what the situation is at the moment. The Republic precipitates this for a number of generations to the effect of it being significantly normalized and widespread, not just in politics, but in business, commerce, and otherwise. I'm getting to a point here at that point. Now we have to concentrate now, and we're just starting the day. We're talking about women as women's football as church. So giving the preface about the challenges that men are experiencing. So I was saying that men are already less than men's selves because of the conditions. Technology is also making it rather challenging for men to be men. On one hand, men have become rather, particularly in the industrialized society, men are significantly corrupted at early ages, and in being corrupted, particularly when the Blue Jays come in, it's just all right. When the men are corrupted, particularly sexually, the men become further essentially enslaved to women, aggregately or macroly. I'm saying macro a lot today, but it becomes a culture of subordination whereby, because of men's guilt and being manipulated, further easily manipulated by women, men are silenced and paused or subdued, silenced and subdued from being genuine authority, because men can continually be called out for what men have done before that. And so in being silenced and subdued, I'm talking around in circles here. Republic diminishes the experience of traditional family. The diminishment of traditional family diminishes the role of men, being men. That's one thing. When men are corrupt, the propensity of men being authoritative men, genuinely masculine, healthy masculine men, is reduced. And additionally, when technology becomes further prominent and women have access to knowledge about how things are done, when women have access to technology for security, self-protection, for autonomous socializing, meaning getting company, virtual company through devices, and additionally, there's that less of a need. It's still always that need for masculine interaction and company, but still psychologically and further less of a need because the sense of relationship can be gleaned from technology, media, and then also so security, physical security through devices, weapons, and additionally, men can be very big and strong or whatever, but women can have guns and knives and all different types of stuff. So self-protection, less of a need for men for that. Knowledge about how things work, and additionally, can look something up and do it oneself. Women are less reliant upon men for that. And otherwise, so anyways, the whole point of all of this, wow, I might have spent on 20 minutes on this. Yeah, bada bingo. The point is that men are further, generally further reduced within convention at the moment. And men in positions of authority are highly compromised, generally speaking, to the point of being able to do anything for a righteous purpose or in the interest of doing it, are compromised from genuinely supporting and investing and promoting a righteous cause. So when I talk about church being women's football, it's one, recognizing just the geopolitics of today, and that many of the institutions that are governed predominantly by men are governed predominantly by men who are significantly compromised away from doing things that are genuinely just and right. And instead, there's a whole lot of runaround. There's a whole lot of avoidance and all this other type of stuff. Now, at the same time, women have a propensity, a greater propensity of, it seems, have a greater, very confident, have a greater propensity for committing irrational divisiveness, meaning that women feel threatened by things that are foreign or different, don't even need reasons for saying no or saying, yo, get at them or otherwise. Irrational divisiveness. Women have a tremendous capacity for that, a huge capacity for that. Most likely much beyond what men do. Men have to have some kind of reason for doing it, but women seem to have less of a need of reason. And when women are empowered by the guilt of men and by technology and by the corruption of the republic, then that tendency for irrational divisiveness is further challenging. Now, at the same time, and what we're talking about now, we could say banking on, but just what we're observing is that at the same time, women have a much further and tremendous and miraculous and beautiful understanding, capacity, obligation towards doing things that are for the well-being of others and oneself. Recognizing what that is and genuinely, thoroughly, immediately supporting that. That Blue Jay took off quick, like. So that's what we're saying at this moment of world civilization. The institutions governed by men are by and large in paralysis through corruption and compromise. Um, Women, institutions governed by women, are similarly situated. However, at the same time, the nature of women is increasingly flexible. It's increasingly sharing and nurturing. And so when we talk about solutions, genuine solutions and natural solutions, what we are observing and what we are reasoning at the moment is that um, is the prospect of women's institutions being a predominant protagonist in the implementation and institutionalization of the solutions. So rather than going through governments, rather than going through conventional institutions, philanthropies, other NGOs or IGOs or otherwise, going to women's groups with solutions, explaining the rationale, giving the formula, the process, the basic gist of it, and then negotiating cooperation accordingly. One of our emphasis at the moment, as we said before, is matriarchy, a world matriarchy, with clans from around the world, with distinct cultures and languages and ways of doing things, but at the same time, cooperation with each other, systemic methodologies of cooperating with each other. That is the wisdom of Haudenosaunee. That is the wisdom within our many traditions. We can even go to Torah. We can even go to Quran and Hadith in this respect. Yes. So, with that knowledge and that wisdom and the awareness of today's conditions, there is increased motivation and guidance to going directly towards women's groups with proficient plans. The plans are proficient as it is, but prudent, going to women with prudent information and prudent solicitation. Working with women's groups is different somewhat than working with men's groups, because in some ways there's a benefit in it, the any solicitation being further specific, and just tangible, but at the same time, like when it's seen, and much further tendency of it getting done genuinely, thoroughly. So, anyways, now when it comes to women's football as church, we recognize women's football as being international. Women who participate, sistren who participate in women's football, generally being further attuned to world culture, different cultures of the world, interacting with different people of the world. There being an increased affinity towards cooperating and building with kinfolk from different backgrounds. In addition to that, maybe even huger than that, being able to interact with people from different religions and ethnicities as teammates, is actually that very thing itself. Women working together as teammates, which in many ways is much less of a thing, but in many ways is much huger of a thing. So, but either way, when women have that experience, the prospect of matriarchs and clan cooperation is further immediate and accessible and doable. So that's another rationale. Uh, uh, Sport, fitness, um, attractiveness of women. We're going to go into the primordial practicals about that as well. Anyways, that's some of what is considered when I make that articulation of women's football as church, even my church being women's football. In a beautiful way, with all thanks and praise to the Most High. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari.